Well, there's really no denying it. 2016 in a global context was a pretty shitty year. Between social and political conflicts and crises and the dozens of notable artists being taken way too soon, and the smoking dumpster fire that was the US election, someday. Someday I'm gonna say my piece. The way we handle things, our hypocrisies, on this crazy circus of a world as a whole. But I'm not gonna waste any more of my energy on that. Not here. Because here's the thing. Disregarding all of this, 2016 was without question the most productive and fulfilling year I've ever had. The most emotionally draining, physically and spiritually demanding, and ultimately rewarding period of my creative career. I use the word career loosely, of course, because ain't none of my shit paying for no flat. I don't know what the accent was for, that accomplished nothing. I don't even know if that was worth it or not. What do you guys think? Yeah, that's what I thought you'd say. I was afraid it wasn't going to look that spiffy without my trademark lens flares, but I seem to be filming at the opportune time for that, so you'll have this for a little bit. That's exciting. It's a happy accident, just like me. Every time I say happy accident, I make that joke, and I'm pretty sure it's not even fucking true. As far as I know, I was intentional. I don't know, maybe mom and dad are hiding something from me. Clearly, it's a mistake they don't regret now. This actually isn't the first time I've recorded something like this, like a stand-up-y microphone type of thing. On my last channel, I talk about Jackson Pollock and Andy Warhol, like the snooty, I'm in an art class kid that I was at the time. I'm still kind of that. I'm just a little bit more self-aware, I like to imagine. So this is where June and her mom live. I like coming here to have some time to myself, some self-reflection time. It's quiet, it's rustic. There's a lot of wood grain textures, and there's dogs. All of this. And there's a goddamn cuckoo clock, I don't know if you heard that. It's different enough from my usual surroundings to just kind of like stimulate my juices and get me motivated to plan stuff out. So yeah, it's nice here. Might as well shoot something here. And what better thing to shoot than the first part of my reflection of 2016. Let's not waste any more time. Let's start talking about that shit, which is gonna have glaringly obvious moments of scripted material, because I need that shit. Otherwise, I'm gonna be talking about this year for like 20 hours, and I wish I was joking, but I totally would if I could. We talk 2016 now! Now, in many ways, 2016 started and also kind of ended, but really, it started much sooner than 2016 if you account for the fact that I was getting into podcasting a little bit. I'm less than 5 minutes into this vlog where I'm supposed to just talk about my year, and I've already convoluted it to shit. Christopher Nolan wishes he could make one of his movies as complex and intricate as this fucking internet video I'm making. Let's try again. In many ways, 2016 started with my cousin Joe. Joe's been making movies, comics, creating music for most of his life at this point. Basically everything I've been remotely interested in doing as a career, he's already done or is currently doing. Lo-fi. We'll do part one lo-fi, Dylan. It'll be great. There won't be vehicle noises or house noises or goddamn phone noises. It's just gonna be all about you and how fucking indie you are. I don't need no sound booth. I just need what I got around me, and I create shit that's just as good. That's my philosophy. I did 2 years of college. Which does really beg the question, especially for those who know me personally, why did it take me this goddamn long to approach this guy to work on something? Now, having thought about it for a good chunk of time throughout the course of the year, I think I've hammered it down to two things. The first, and dumbest thing, is pride. I call it the dumbest because in hindsight it really didn't make any sense at all. Here's this guy who's been living my dream for years and years and years now. The kind of guy I could benefit being around, whether it's working or just picking his brain and just picking up some insight that I could apply to my own philosophies and creativity. And though I pride myself in teaching myself a lot of shit, there's just some stuff you can't learn from yourself. There's a lot of shit out there that you simply cannot learn on your own, and it's gotta come from a seasoned professional like him. So I say all this, but at the time, where does my stupid mind go? Fuck that noise. I'm a strong, independent black woman, strong, independent filmmaker, and I don't need to ride no coattails on nobody, no matter who they are. Kevin Smith, Richard Linklater, Chris Nolan, John Cassavetes, even though I haven't seen one goddamn movie of his. They all did it on their own, they made it big, I'ma do it too. That's how this works. Nope. Like I said, it's super dumb, and it all stems from this weird chip on my shoulder I got after I stopped going to college, after about a year and a half of doing a lot of freelancing and trying to carve out my own path. My bottom line was anything that I needed to learn I could get from either watching stuff or reading some books or just, making my own stuff. This I said. This I believed. This I honestly still kind of believe to an extent, just with the knowing that it's not so cut and dry and it's not quite as romantic and easy to do as most people would like to think, including 2014 me. He's a good guy, that 2014 me. He had a lot of ambition and a lot of vision. He just didn't know what he was talking about 40-50% of the time. The older I get, the more I realize that a lot of stuff, a lot of ambition that you want to fulfill comes down to how fearless you can be. In this case, in order to succeed down a more independent route, you have to be fearless enough to get out there into the professional field in some capacity, or ask for help. I know. And really, that brings me to my second reason that it took me so long to approach Joe, and that was fear. A fear that I was very much in denial of having for a long goddamn time while I was making my drawing tutorials and my awkward social commentary via stale memes, satires. I was at a rough spot. It's not so much that I'm ashamed of that stuff from a little over a year ago, it's more so they weren't exactly what I wanted them to be, and they didn't really go anywhere after I made them. I was down. Without question. And yes, under all this gung-ho, starving artist posturing, I was afraid. Afraid of leaving my niche and being, for all intents and purposes, a professional filmmaker and a professional artist. And I genuinely don't think I would have overcome this insecurity if I didn't have some kind of easing into this upper tier of creating stuff. And that easing came in the form of a little band called Monday Mistress. Joe's in a band that started up not too long ago, and though I can personally confirm that dude's gotten some crazy good band and performance coverage at different venues, it's pretty damn hard to cover yourself. Enter me, the chimp playing with the stick in the mud, the cousin with a DSLR and pretty decent microphone. June and I made the trip out to a bar, coffee house performance and arts joint called the Epicure Cafe to get some Monday Mistress goodness on tape. Or SD card, but tape is and always will be more fun to say. But all in all, Monday Mistress is a rock-solid, blood-pumping act, and I was pretty fortunate to come out a couple of times and record some of their performances. And as a side note, if you're looking for some new alt-rock to listen to, I'll leave some links in the description below to some of their stuff. Go check them out. They sound pretty fucking good in my opinion. Okay, moving on. So after the gig, me and Joe start talking. The filmmaker's life, the perils of being an indie bloke of any sort, the fact that I wasn't really that content with anything that I was making, and we basically decided it would be super worth my time to come aboard some stuff he was working on as a PA. No. Cute. No. There you go. That's better. First came a commercial for a comic book convention he has ties to called AwesomeCon, shot on a handful of different locations in a single day.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it totally matches the suit.
Sweetheart.
Save for the freezing temperatures and save for the fact that I got lost a couple times between locations because I'm a garbage millennial who needs an app to tell him where to go every time. It all went super well, and I look back on that whole production quite fondly. I acted as an extra set of hands, carried food, coffee, and equipment from the caravan of cars that we had going, and even chauffeured an actress to and from the metro. Yeah, a lot of driving that day. I really fucking hate driving. That's a story for another time. This added nothing. Okay. Yeah, so the Awesome Con commercial was a great endeavor to Shadow. Probably the best introduction to the time I was going to be spending with Joe that first chunk of the year. I mean, it was a pretty big thing to take on in a single day, and it gave me a peek into all the various levels of production that goes into something like that. Cameramen, lighting, prop masters, makeup, gaffers, actors of all backgrounds and ages and personalities. Even something as small as catering is actually the lifeblood of the whole goddamn thing. If your coffee and bagel surplus is running low, then you have a good chance of having an apocalypse on your hands. I mean, that didn't happen. I just like to imagine, like, all the actors are totally fine, and then some bloke with a headset or something, like, eats the last bagel, and Mad Max starts happening. I haven't seen the new one. Anyway, Awesome Con commercial. Great experience, would def do it again. Now, about a month or two later, I PA'd on a short film that Joe was acting as DP on. Director of photography or cinematographer. I apologize to people who don't know what that is. I don't like being the guy who just throws around acronyms, assuming everyone knows what they are. Although it is going to help me if I end up working on something of this kind of scale again. So I might as well start building up that jargon now. It's a good habit to have. What, Dixon? I know. So, short film. Much smaller than the last thing. Just 4 people. Myself, Joe, the director, and the actress who was also the producer on the thing. Something about the size of this one kind of made that fear I was talking about come out a little bit more than it did last time. The accountability jelly isn't spread over nearly as big of a slice of toast. That's the metaphor I wrote, and unfortunately I think that's the best one I'm gonna come up with, so I'm gonna just keep moving on. But the point is, if anything on the shoot went wrong, there was that much higher of a chance that it would have been my fault. Which, in all honesty, as in any field, is just something you gotta learn to get over. And learn I did. Because as smooth and uneventful as that first chunk of time working on this thing was, all of my fears came true when I kinda did something that, you know what, I'll make that its own separate video, because in hindsight it's a pretty funny story, and a pretty important story, at least for me. But the spoiler-free version, I made a mistake. It was awkward for a second. I got panicky and thought my life was over, but then the rest of the day happened. And the rest of the day was smooth and informative, educational, just all around good. It just felt great to be part of something with a story to tell, something that oozed with as much competence and skill as it did passion and meaning. And the team on this thing, at the end of the day, chill as fuck. And I love that. So when the time came to meet up again to get some additional footage, this time incorporating the nephew of the actress/producer, who was also pretty cool. He has a channel! Go to it! Some fan-filmy goodness and some VFX that, while not like ILM quality, it's still way better than anything I could do with After Effects. I don't know the first goddamn thing about After Effects. He taught himself After Effects or something similar, and I respect the crap out of him for that. Go check him out. Go. I honestly keep forgetting that we met and had a good time on that shoot, but yeah, cool dude. Younger than me, more skilled in a lot of ways than I was at his age though, so yeah, go check him out. So after this project came an interview shot somewhere in Baltimore, some dude's house. I learned that that's a thing that happens with these things, which was cool. There's pretty backgrounds on those like ESPN docs. You never really assume that someone lived there. It's just a pretty background. No, some house. Had a nice bookshelf. Probably does a lot of reading. I'm pretty sure he was a journalist, so that would make sense. Sharp dude. Nice dude. But yeah, it was an interview about baseball scouting, finding up-and-coming athletes in different parts of the world. I want to say China. Is it China or Japan? China or Japan the dude was working for. Whichever one has the thriving baseball industry that like rivals ours, or is maybe even better. I don't know. I don't baseball, so any details about the subject matter of this interview, I'm pretty sure I forgot it like the week after I did it. The logistical stuff though, yeah, great experience. I got to monitor audio levels, and that fed into my desire to learn like more about audio production, which had kind of started the year before, but I'll talk about that some other time. Ramble, 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 ramble. There's a wall there. Ramble, 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 ramble. But yeah, this season of working with Joe was capped by what was probably the best part, I think, anyway. And that was helping him get coverage of a festival in the Northern Virginia area called NovaFest, a quality festival of music and film that took place at the Angelica Theater in Northern Virginia. Awesome venue. They have a much wider array of films to show when they're not doing the festival. A lot of indie and art house stuff that most other theaters don't seem to want to put out because they're mainstream theaters. That's totally understandable. You just want to you want to pick the easier to digest, dumber shit is what I'm getting at. They had Green Room with Anton Yelchin. Rest in peace, buddy. I didn't watch it, but I wanted to because I really liked him. But yeah, NovaFest, it provided me the full festival experience, complete with musical performances, none of which I stayed for, but Monday Mistress was one of them, and I'm pretty sure they won one of the top prizes for that when they started passing those out. So yeah, represent Monday Mistress. I'd be a horrible promoter, by the way. But the meat and potatoes of the whole festival was screenings for shorts and feature films, as well as a few shorts that ranged from, you could tell it was their first movie, which is actually super cool, seeing iPhone footage on a professional movie theater screen. That's actually kind of inspiring. And then the efforts of more seasoned professional filmmakers that just blew me away with how much story and thematic content they packed into a few minutes. It was a good time. I learned a lot watching that shit. But I spent most of my time at this spot. Second floor, full lighting red carpet setup with a nifty background. We nabbed interviews with all the various cast members and filmmakers who worked on all of the projects that were being screened at the festival. Joe works on a Black Magic. Those things are really top of the line, film quality pieces of equipment, but they're really heavy. That didn't stop him from just carrying it around on his shoulder for a good chunk of the day, and then he'd be like, Dylan, hold this for me, I gotta go do something. I would do it, and then I would be exhausted by the time I had to hand it back to him. Yeah, that's what they don't tell you about filmmaking. If you want to be a good filmmaker, if you want to be a resourceful dude who's able to get all kinds of different shots in different locations, you gotta be jacked, son. You gotta lift, boy. Well, I mean, you don't gotta. You can use a T3i like I do on everything, and your stuff just won't look as good. It's a small price to pay for not having to exercise. But yeah, it was a overall inspiring experience. Got to learn a lot about more televised, ready for internet content, monitoring audio levels, learning the interface on a camera that's much higher grade than the one I've been using, learning to wire up talent and interviewers with mics, all in a setting that's more or less a microcosm of the kind of thing I would like to one day be a part of. If I play my cards right, maybe it'll be me in front of the camera this year. Anyway, I hope this setup works. It's fun, I'm not gonna lie. I feel like I'm at the improv, just telling a few gags, having me a couple of goofs and gaffes about my life, getting some giggles out of some people, This is a nice setup. That's pretty much all I have to say about that. It was the first real chunk of the year where I was actually applying my ambitions and skills that I currently have to anything. I learned a lot. I got closer to a family member I had wished to work with for a long time, just didn't have the courage to do. And Joe, if you happen to be watching this, I don't know if this is the kind of thing you'd watch all the way through, because you're pretty old school and you like to avoid something that could potentially waste your time, which I totally get, by the way. Thank you, dude. Thank you. You can check out his stuff at Astray Productions. I'll leave more links, like I said. His wife Carolyn's pretty inspiring as well. She's a cartoonist, does a pretty regular series of comic strips called Curls. Very unique, very light, very pleasant to the eye and the brain. A quirky, refreshing series with a giant slice of toast who has a face. Can't find that shit anywhere else. So yeah, go check her out too. They have a podcast. They do a podcast together. I'll plug their podcast. Did I mention I would be a horrible promoter because of shit like this?
He do a thing. You can go watch the thing. You should go to his website and watch the thing.
So yeah, join me next time. I'm not really going to promise anything concrete, but what I can tell you is that part 2 of whatever the hell this is will be a little different. A lot happened this year. Whole fucking lot. I would never actually drop that.